Hello and welcome to episode 18. My name is Ross.
And I'm Craig.
It's time to put the kettle on because it's tea time. So, should we get started with the news?
Yes, let's go.
Following on for some recent episodes where we've talked about going to Mars and finding ice on the moon, I found a couple of quick space-based news articles, so I thought I'd share them with you because I like space. Number one, NASA has recently made contact with Voyager 2 for the first time in months as NASA tests out some new equipment. Voyager and Voyager 2 were both launched out into interstellar space and has now traveled 11.6 billion miles in the last 43 years. I love space because all the big numbers you get, like the ridiculous numbers that you get. Do you know what I mean? Like this thing was launched before I was even born, and then 11.6 billion miles flying through space. I mean, I just don't understand how it doesn't hit something. Do you know what I mean? Like, it hasn't hit a planet, hasn't hit an asteroid, hasn't hit an alien, hasn't hit anything. It's just 43 years in one line, boom, and we can still talk to it. It's crazy. But anyway, so that's fun to know, isn't it? It does really mean that there is a massive universe out there for us to explore.
Yes.
So if we do, we've still got alternatives. It's okay. Well, actually, no. I guess it's bad news for that because actually, there's nothing out there. Anyway, also in space news, it turns out the moon has a little sister, and she's been playing hide and seek behind Mars for about 4.5 billion years. Jokes on her, really, because Big Brother never came looking. She just went hiding and never came. He's doing that to my son because I forget we're playing. Anyway, moving on. So yeah, we're not sure whether it's part of the moon that's broken off or whether it's actually part of Mars that got broken off. But either way, it's a small piece of moon. It's exactly the same color. It's made of the same stuff. It's basically they did a composite thingy of it. It's got lots of iron in it and whatever else the moon got on it. So yeah, it could be a little sister if we want to. The article that was from the Guardian tried to come up with new names, so it's officially called the VF31, or that's the abbreviated name anyway. But they were trying to come up with new names. So I don't know if you want to come up with one too, or maybe anyone else has got to go on and put the comments below. But very first one, Moon 2, because it's a Moon 2. Simple, but it's effective, but it's rubbish. Chip off the old moon. And probably the most, well, at least in the UK, it would be the most popular one would be Moony McMoon, because that's
the old classic,
isn't it? Yeah. So yeah, another little moon apparently. Technically, I think, but
yeah, I'm sure there's plenty of moon puns out there. Yeah, please add some comments. But yeah, mini moon, don't know, there's plenty.
Just moon. Right. So in another Guardian article, was the subject of artificial light being discussed and proposed that it should be treated like any other pollution due to the impact that it has on surrounding wildlife. So it's they did a massive study. They've discovered stuff like reduced pollination by insects, trees budding earlier in the spring, seabirds flying into lighthouses, sea turtles mistakenly wandering inland to bright hotels, down to all lots of things, like whether things feed longer or shorter because there's less or less night, more day, whatever. Just essentially, it's just interfering with the general flow of nature, if you like. They're not all negative, but they do show that the artificial light is having an effect. So Kevin Gaston, who's a professor from the Environment and Sustainability Institute at the University of Exeter, said, "At the moment, we have the attitude that lighting is something we chuck out there and don't think about very much, but we need to think of it in terms of using it only when we need it. where we need it, and how we need it. It is another pollutant.
Good point.
So why do we do it? According to Kevin, at the heart of this is a deep-rooted human need to light up the night. We are still, in a sense, afraid of the dark. The ability to turn the night into something like the daytime is something we have pursued far beyond the necessity of doing so. And I don't think he's wrong. It's not. I generally hadn't really thought about it much, really. I mean, I was aware of it, but I hadn't really thought about it as in that terms before. Because it's anything that where we just don't think about the impact of it, which is what used to be the case with oil and stuff. Is a pollutant. I mean, we've all known light pollution, but I don't know if we do anything particular to stop it.
No, I'm in the same boat as you. I've not thought about it really.
No. There you go. I mean, even you put solar lights in your garden, you think that'd be pretty, but the reality is they add light to your garden for a while anyway. Yeah.
I suppose that messes up some sort of insects or something.
Yeah, I mean, it might be on a small level, and there's if there's I guess in some worlds it's for some amount of species that will increase their feeding time, so it's probably a weighing thingy, but it's certainly something I think people should be at least aware of, even if they don't change it. I mean, and we do it like safety, don't we? So as in we have street lights so that we don't get mugged or whatever. But we don't actually need it unless there's someone on the street. But anyway, right. Yeah. We've been doing our little segment of round of applause. I think we need a new one. One where we just mock people.
Okay.
And this week, round of mocking is going to be Shell, as in Royal Dutch Shell Company, as in oil company. If you Google the top worst sustainable companies, you'll likely find a few names that repeatedly appear on lists. Chevron, ExxonMobil. Is it ExxonMobil or ExxonMobil? ExxonMobil, isn't it? You know,
Bob. Yeah.
Exxon. And another one you'll often see is Shell. So, they're generally... But anyway, earlier this week, Shell started a Twitter debate and a poll where they asked, what are you willing to change to help reduce emissions? Which I think people... basically, they wish they hadn't asked. A lot of people took offense to being suggested that it was in any way anyone else's fault and not theirs, or not at least more theirs than ours, because they knew about it for 30 years and they didn't tell us. But I thought I'd read you out some of the comments. So Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, or AOC as she's otherwise known, replied with, I'm willing to hold you accountable for lying about climate change for 30 years when you secretly knew the entire time that fossil fuel emissions would destroy our planet. Nice one, AOC. Next one, we've got Greta Thunberg. She replied with, I don't know about you, but I sure am willing to call out the fossil fuel companies for knowingly destroying future living conditions for countless generations for profit, and then trying to distract people and prevent real systemic change, through endless greenwash campaigns. That was all hyphenated as well. That's why I had to read it so that was good. Then we had some other comments, like some more funny ones, like this is like Freddy Krueger asking what you're willing to change to get better sleep. Or a similar one, this is like Hannibal Lecter asking which corn product you'd like to try. To the more aggressive and blunt, fuck you for apparently destroying our planet and gaslighting us all the while. You had your chance to be part of the solution. Now we're doing everything we can to put you out of business and send your executives to prison, and we won't stop.
Fair enough.
And then there was a few more blunt ones. Just a couple I'll read out to you. You are the apostles of death. And look in the fucking mirror. Nice and blunt one.
Yeah.
going through a lot of them, trying to find some sensible, well-natured ones. I found one which I think probably summarized it without swearing too many times. Was I'm willing to never buy anything from Shell or ever invest in Shell. That should help reduce emissions.
Wow, well done, Shell. I mean, there's a reason why online polls always fail, and the internet is scattered with various reasons and various evidence-based things that have failed over the years of why marketeers should never do this. But they never seem to learn. I mean, the most common ones, or the biggest proper ones, have you heard about the McDonald's and Taylor Swift campaigns?
No.
I mean, if you want to laugh and you don't mind a little bit of vulgar naming and sprinkling of racism here and there, just have a quick Google of McDonald's name a burger fail. As you can imagine, okay. Yes. They tried to get people on the internet to name the new burger, and it ended up as a massive failure. Right. The Taylor Swift one's hilarious too. She was trying to get a point where people would vote for where she can visit next to do her next gig. And North Korea was winning for a while, but they were quite clever. Then they changed the rules to be just in the US. So, okay. So they decided to make it the St. Louisiana music school for the deaf. And that's where she went, apparently. So that's nice of them, but that's just the internet. I mean, never trust the internet. And yeah, more fools to the marketers.
Yeah.
Anyway,
that's what I got. So
cool. Yeah, I'll just jump into my news because I know we got a big topic today. So I'll put a bit of light sprinkle of news to ease us in a little bit. And a nice bit of news from the UK. We've just achieved the anticipated first plasma in what's been an unprecedented huge fusion experiment. So it's something the UK has been building for the last 7 years. And we now have a reactor which has successfully been turned on for the first time and achieved first plasma.
Cool.
What that means is that it's a confirmation that all the components work together to heat hydrogen into a state of plasma. So into that state of matter.
Old hydrogen again.
Hydrogen always comes back. I mean, it's the universe's most abundant element. So it makes sense we would use it. The development is crucial, basically, for the function of a nuclear fusion reactor. And this ability to turn hydrogen into plasma will be what's needed to eventually reach the dream of having a nuclear fusion reactor. Mm-hmm. And obviously, once we do get that, which has been the dream for decades, and we've chatted about before, once we do get it, that's then clean, virtually infinite, low carbon energy. And yeah, we just are a little bit closer now. So that's a very nice experiment for the UK.
Yeah.
So that one's hard to follow since that's a really big one. But how about a millionaire, a UK millionaire, who is working to grow high quality diamonds made entirely from the sky? Yeah, the sky.
So he's going to extract the carbon out of the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and then compress it into diamonds?
Yeah, how do you know that?
Kind of just that clever.
That's exactly what he's going to do. So this UK millionaire is Dale Vince, and he's the founder of Ecotricity. And that's basically what they're doing. They have a lab, which is they're calling a sky mining facility, based in Stroud, and it captures carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, as you say, takes water from rainfall, and does all this via solar and wind energy. Great. So it's low carbon to make diamonds. And they're expected to pump out 200 carats of diamond a month in the short term, ramping up and scaling to 1,000 carats a month. and they're still deciding how to price these, because pricing of diamonds and the whole idea of like blood diamonds, they're priced primarily on the difficulty of their mining. So when we're just making them from the sky, I assume they should be significantly cheaper.
Well, yeah, but perhaps more importantly, although it might not change it, because I know there was a bad rep for diamond mining. I don't know if still that bad stuff still happens or not, but but presumably they could take away from that industry, which would then crash any ability for them to get away with what they get away with.
Exactly, that's exactly what he tries to do. So he's an environmentalist.
That's what we want. It just comes down to us to say, actually, yeah, we're quite happy to have 1,000-carat thingy that doesn't come from there. But the problem is, people also just think the one that comes from the ground is more rare. Still, maybe.
It really depends. I think that's why their pricing is still to be decided, because they need to undercut that market effectively. It's the same quality, if not higher, because it's more pristine. And yeah, there's no child mining, there's no blood diamond, no one has died to mine this out. So it loses that sort of entanglement, which I think the majority of people would prefer. Obviously, there could be some sort of psychopaths who want that, but I mean they'll continue to get that, but it'll be much rarer, much more expensive, and those operations would primarily fail, I would assume. So yeah, all on to Vince. So yeah, Lance Vince, cool investment. Okay, in other news, a little bit from the EU. So kind of a negative bit of news too, because we're leaving the EU, which is why this becomes an issue for us. But electric vehicle sales in Europe are expected to triple, which is pretty cool. And the UK faces supply issues. So we are in a situation where we literally cannot buy enough. There's not enough cars here for the demand right now.
Yeah.
So what we're expecting right now, we're expecting triple to roughly account for 10% of all vehicles in the EU to be electric by the end of 2020, which is quite cool, and 15% by the end of 2021. So this is quite a big percentage.
This year, 15% at the end of next year.
Yes, currently 5%.
I still would have expected a faster growth next year, to be honest, but maybe I'm too optimistic.
I mean, it's estimated. The UK is part of this tripling. However, we are in that transition period where we're leaving the EU, which kind of makes our involvement slightly awkward. The EU has emission laws in place, which allows the adoption of electric vehicles to be easier because higher emissions get fined, etc. Similar system to what we have with road tax right now, but it's a EU-wide thing. Right. Without the EU, obviously we have to design our own rules, our own encouragement scheme to get people into electric vehicles, which I think we are doing. But yeah, we do have a supply issue. So Tesla is on the list, but they are not at the top. At the top right now, we seem to have just the kind of local European brands, the ones you kind of expect.
Zoe and that lot.
Yeah, exactly. All the normal ones. So I suppose that kind of makes sense. We are expecting Tesla to be a bit more of a player in 2021 in Europe. But yeah, right now it's Zoe. That's number one.
Yeah. And
it probably reign for some time. What's the range like in a Zoe compared to a Leaf?
I can't remember, but I guess I would probably say it's probably about 150, something like that. I'd have to look it up, but it won't.
Okay.
It's not huge. It'll probably be about the same as the newer Nissan. As in not my one.
Right. Okay. Yeah, because yours is about 90-ish, isn't it? So we're looking at about.
I don't know that. That's a complete guess.
Okay.
The correct answer there. There you go.
There we are. So For the UK to be part of this tripling of growth, it just needs to act a bit quicker and get some laws in place to help incentivize and get rid of any supply chain issues, because some of those are regulation issues which it can clean up. So hopefully there are people on that, sorting that now, because I really would like to see the UK's electric vehicles also triple. And last week we gave a round of applause for the 20,000th electric charging point being installed in the UK.
Yep.
So I feel we are getting closer to this world where, well, the UK again, closer to a world where it is the king of wind, the king of electric vehicles. We can do it. Let's hope we can get there soon.
So, I mean, I think the Tesla's German factory will probably help with supply anyway. And obviously we've got the Model Y, which will be very popular in Europe. Which is only sort of starting to come out now, and I think it's still being shipped over. So yeah, that should all start. And then of course you've got the Cybertruck, which, you know, there are orders from in the UK. No one's got one yet. So they're coming too. I know, because I'm on the list.
Well, didn't Musk say he's not shipping to the UK?
Well, they're certainly not doing that at the moment, no. And I think they're planning on tweaking certainly European one, if not the UK one. European. But there's been some backlash on that one as well, because people are going, look, just because apparently you can get classifications added to your license so that you can drive bigger vehicles, and some people would rather go through the effort of getting an additional classification added to their license than they would have a smaller Tesla Cybertruck. They'd rather get it, they'd rather go and do a test and have a massive Cybertruck than they would drive a small one.
Okay.
Elon Musk didn't even know that was possible, so he's looking into it for us.
Fair enough.
Personally, if they make it an inch thinner, that's fine. I don't mind.
Yeah. Well, they're in the process of redesigning it, as you said, so I'm sure they can do that.
Sure they can. But yes, we do need some better options on the road.
We do. That isn't just a Renault Zoe. And yeah, the final little fun one before I hand the floor back to yourself. Okay. Do you think AI is incredibly smart?
Now?
Well,
I mean, yeah. Yes, I do think it's incredibly smart. Yes, I do.
Cool. I think in general it kind of is, yes. But Inverness Caledonian Thistle Football Club certainly do think it's very clever. They developed a ball tracking AI to operate as pitch-side cameras. They did this for two reasons. One, they're a smaller club. They don't have the funds. And two, we're in a pandemic, so you don't really want people running about if they don't need to be there. Sure. So they developed this bit of AI tech to follow the ball and pan the cameras for them.
Cool.
How could it go wrong? So
what could it do? Nothing. Then it doesn't know where to look. Just looks up in the sky.
Well, you'd think they'd test these things. So it was fully well tested as far as I've read. And when you and I can attest, it's very easy to get bugs in software. And it's very easy to get into live software too. They can easily sit through testing, especially innocent bugs, which you wouldn't even think of testing. So this particular one, the pitch cameras were doing an amazing job for the first 10, 12 minutes. And then it locked on to what it thought was the ball. But it turned out it was the linesman's bald head. And it followed him the rest of the game.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
So every time the linesman came into shot, the cameras immediately panned to him as if he was the ball. And it stayed on him until he left shot. This game was being streamed on YouTube, so a lot of fans were obviously quite peeved by this. One fan on Twitter put it out, missed our goal. Camera kept thinking the Lino's bald head was the ball. Don't know what's happening. So it's quite a funny thing. So there's a link to the video in the description.
Well, there was a show on TV, like when I was younger, probably Question of Sport or something. And I swear one of the things was, or maybe it was in the newspaper, there was somewhere with sport where you could see a picture and you'd have to guess where the ball was. Right.
Okay.
So that was something that, someone's got that. There's, if we recorded all those entries, we must have millions and millions of entries of where people think the ball is. But yeah, obviously, theoretically, you could just play an entire football game and then remove the ball from the footage and then teach the AI on that. But you should be able to teach the ball. Point is, you should be able to teach the AI where the ball is without ever seeing the ball, just based on what everyone else is doing, because people are running towards it or standing up for it, or waiting for it, that sort of thing. So.
Yeah, I mean, I personally would have thought you'd just put a Bluetooth chip in the ball and have the camera follow that. Why even have visual AI processing? That just sounds too complicated.
Probably,
There's no need.
Slow though, isn't it? That would be too slow because they have to receive the signal and work it out.
I'm sure there's a faster way. I'm sure that there's the fastest sort of connection that isn't visual connection. But yeah, so that's a cool little video that's in the description. And if you want to pause us and take 5 minutes out to have a laugh, please do. Because, yeah, from now on, it gets political. So, over to us.
Oh, you've told them what's going to happen next.
I think they're going to know.
Well, okay. Right. Well, before we go quite there, it was only a few episodes ago, we talked about the Paris Agreement. And today, the 4th of November, is the official date that the US exits the Paris Agreement. Technically, President Trump left it in June of 2017, but according to the rules, they had to stay in for 3 years. So when they joined through Obama, I don't know if this is the official reason, but I think he knew that he was going to get pushback from the Senate and Congress to actually put it through. So he bypassed all of that by signing, he did a Trump and signed an executive order to just go, screw you guys, I'm doing this anyway, which he did. Yes, so that all happened, but obviously then he then left, and then today is the important day that they officially leave. Now, something else is going on today. I'm sure if you're quite aware, but we will come to that in a second. So as outsiders of the US, I think you and I would agree that it doesn't reflect particularly well on the US that they pulled out of that agreement. I think typically we think that Americans share the same sort of values as us, and it makes pulling out of that, I think it's like 220 countries involved with that, coming up with that, and it makes them seem quite petty and selfish and short-sighted, and not what we would necessarily expect from them. And actually, it's not even what most Americans, at least the ones that we see in the public eye, ones we see on TV or whatever, it doesn't seem to reflect what they want either. So it just seems to be Donald Trump and then all these hidden people that don't seem to think that climate change is a thing. So I think if we're talking about our own political views, you and I would both say that we're more conservative than anything else, which in America would make us Republican, from what I understand. Is that fair?
I think so, yeah. But our version of conservatism is different to this.
Is it? Okay, fine. All right, I won't make that stretch. But so either way, the point of me saying that was to say that we might more align with Trump's party than Democrats. But for me, this isn't a conservative issue. This is just having a basic understanding that some things are bigger than the individual person's pursuit of success, or the American dream, as they probably call it. Just about having a problem which is a more of a global issue that we all need to work together to work towards fixing, a bit like the pandemic. So excluding themselves from the agreement just makes them also seem a little bit less trustworthy, like they're not making their decisions based on sensible argument, but rather than probably just money. So anyway, the US can rejoin. It takes them, I think it might take them a month or so. There might be some provisions that they have to do, but if they choose to go back, that they could go back quite quickly. But President Trump has no interest in doing so. But Joe Biden has said that he would rejoin if he became president, which of course brings us on to the topic literally of the day and possibly of the week, the US election. So it's Wednesday evening here in the UK, which makes it mid-afternoon in the US, the day after the election. And as it currently stands, we still don't know who the new president is going to be. At last look, I think if everybody, if the states that had yet to complete their counting just stopped counting now, I think it worked out that basically Biden would win by like 2 electoral votes or something. But because some of the states are so close, we've already had Trump contesting them and stuff. So he's questioning everything. In fact, he said well in advance of the election that basically if he doesn't win, it was fraudulent. But the problem is, if he did win, he pronounced himself the winner and say nothing more about it. There was no fraud. We would just be like, yeah, we won. I knew we were going to. In fact, he declared himself the winner last night, which is long before the states had finished counting the ballots. I think maybe not even half of them were in at that point. And his claim was that in this day and age, that the current technology is a sham and it shouldn't take a few days to get the result. But like, you can't just decide now that because you think the result should be counted in a day that therefore it will be. So all a bit weird. People have moaned at him or criticized him for coming out and not only saying that he'd already won, but that it was a fraud and that you should. Oh, that was the main thing, was that they should stop. Anyone that's in like trying to vote should just stop now. Even though.
But this is a thing there as well that that's sort of like a reality check is voting has stopped. You can't no longer vote. It's now just counting. So, I mean, when he says stop voting, people already have stopped voting. It's now counting. What he's actually saying is stop counting. So it's kind of it's a bit confusing then, because what they're basically counting now are the mailed-in votes, which are from, for example, overseas military, who are allowed to vote. Overseas US residents are also allowed to vote. So their mailed-in votes, especially during a pandemic where they were encouraged to mail them in, I think is very insensitive to say.
That's not the only ones. Obviously, a lot of people in, I think, especially Philadelphia, sent theirs in because they felt it wasn't safe to go to the polls.
Exactly, they were encouraged to do so.
Yeah, but by him saying stop counting now, if you're a Republican and you're working for the counting polls, then if you listen to your president at that point, you would be breaking the rules, basically. So that's a bit rough. So yeah, you can't just change the point is you can't change the rules just because it doesn't fit with what you'd like it to. And I think there's a state that was close, and before it even got to the point of being a final count, he'd already said we wanted to recount before we even knew which way it had gone. So it's all looking a bit of a mess. But okay, so I thought it would be interesting just to quickly explore. Donald Trump says he wants better technology for voting. So I thought I'd explore what potential systems there are. So one that has been used, or at least been touted to be the savior, is blockchain technology. So over the last few years, in West Virginia, Colorado, and Utah, they've all used blockchain-based mobile apps to allow the military, as you mentioned, and their families who are living overseas to cast absentee ballots using their phone. And the apps also made use of fingerprints and facial recognition. Now, just to, before we have any sort of questions over this, those 3 states that I mentioned, currently 2 of them are red states, 1 of them is blue. So it's not even like there's no partisan view there. It is split.
Surprised to see California's not on that list. You'd think Silicon Valley.
But it's not. It's all in the mid ones. So anyway, there are still concerns over using the blockchain technology for the wider general election purpose, because it would basically, because it's such a big thing, and it would be manipulating the result would be so impactful that it's too much of an incentive for people to try to abuse it. So whilst the log of all the results might be perfect because it's on the blockchain, you would still need to rule out the possibility of the devices themselves being compromised, somehow manipulating the input of the user through some malware on the phone. And because it's the internet, the ability for that malware to get on the phone and to affect a wide number of voters easily is, you could, it has the potential, if you put some sort of, you can imagine some sort of TikTok link, which says, download it from here, and it happens to be a dodgy version of the same app, and then you get the point. So gaming the system, basically.
Yeah, that's a good point. I never thought of that.
Basically, what they're saying is that whilst blockchain and the technology is there, what makes paper ballots good is because they're rubbish.
Yeah,
because
analog.
It would take such a concerted effort to manipulate the paper ballots by interfering with, lots of different polling stations and et cetera, that it makes it much, much harder to do than a potential virus that you can spread in seconds. So
yeah,
its strength is its weakness. So aside from security threats to the election itself, many people will have also an issue with the validation method of. So anyone who needs to register with the app would, of course, need to require some sort of proof of identification, which obviously brings up concerns over privacy and whether the government are going to require your identification to do some sort of Big Brother-esque facade for something else, or whether it would be used for, and this is a thing that's been talked about quite a lot recently, intentional voter suppression. So don't understand fully how it works, but from what I understand, in certain states, they were achieving suppression of, I think it was black voters, or at least some minority group of voters, by requiring them to have lots of proof of this and that. So because they weren't able to get hold of those documents easily, they therefore couldn't vote. So it's a way of filtering out. I don't know why necessarily, why those people wouldn't have had those identification documents in the first place, but it could be used in that way. So it would have to be introduced sort of slowly, I guess, and make sure it covers those issues.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, a simple app that allows you to vote could seriously fix the one thing that they talk about every election day is turnout. I was talking about how a true democracy would have everybody involved and everybody voting, and if it was able to work on a smartphone, then the chances are your number of votes would increase dramatically. I mean, has it increased dramatically this year because of the sort of the widely divided country, or has it improved because so many more people were able to just do it via post? Because they weren't able to do it before via post. There were rules as to who could and who couldn't. And this year they released those. They removed those rules so anyone could do it, and we have much higher intake for voters in the US. So it's that causality. So basically, the only way to get us to the point of able to use blockchain as a viable technology for voting is basically to prove that it can't be manipulated, probably not on a general election, but on a smaller scale, and then slowly grow it up, which is what they're doing basically with these small tests.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point, that the blockchain itself can't be manipulated, but yeah, the devices can. I never thought that angle. That's quite a weakness.
Yeah. There you go. So then I thought, well, since we still don't know whether it's Trump or Biden who's going to win, I thought I'd quickly look into who is considered to be the best or the better for the UK. As it's a UK podcast, we should forget. It's not worry about. They got America first. We've got UK first, and we want to know what it would do for us. So I read an article published on City AM early in the week, and they had two different opposing views. They deliberately got two different views, and then they got to tell you why. So the first view was from a Republican, and they said, unsurprisingly, that they thought Donald Trump was better because he's part British, which I thought
that's quite. As I said, that's quite a stretch because isn't all of America part British? That's kind of where they came from.
Yeah. So because of that, according to this person, that makes him pro-British, and that's why his administration has made a free trade agreement with the UK a priority. Only reason, apparently, it's because he's was it Scotland? Is he from? He's got some connection to Scotland.
He's got Scottish family. I think Scottish golf courses and stuff. Yeah, but I mean that sounds good. I can't wait to get into that chlorinated chicken.
Is that CFC? Chlorinated fried chicken? Anyway, so yeah, on the opposite side, the contrastly, Biden is expected to focus on the EU above the UK because they're bigger, and has threatened that no deal would be made if we messed around with the Irish Brexit border thing, which I think is now referred to as the Internal Market Bill or something. The thing that Boris has recently said that we might need to do something in this event, which we never plan to execute. That thing. Basically, if we mess about with that, the US will give us the middle finger, according to Joe Biden. So that was their view. The flip side Democrat view was a more of a general one, that Trump has a reputation for undermining global cooperation, as we mentioned in the Paris Agreement. He's an America First standpoint. His attitude towards climate is that we don't need to do anything because it won't matter too much. His questionable handling of COVID-19, arguably accepted to be one of the worst countries in the world of how they dealt with it. And generally his, attitude towards people, reverberates around the world as a slightly negative influence. And I'm being polite there. A post-pandemic world will have new problems to solve with green technology, automation, artificial intelligence, stuff like self-driving and things like that. The new sort of more complicated problems, and a longer-term view is that the UK will do better if it has a president that more closely reflects our own values, being a bit more open-minded, more forward-looking, and given the choice of the two of them, Joe Biden is the better of the two. So those are the two different arguments. Dare I ask you, what do you think?
It's a hard one, isn't it? Because in a given state, I can see why Donald Trump would be the best option for us. Because? In the sense of we are heading for a no-deal Brexit on January the 1st. Yes. We would want that trade deal. Should Biden side with the EU and we do go no deal, obviously that does put up the Northern Irish and Republic of Ireland border into despair. So we are likely to get slapped for that quite heavily. So it does kind of feel like we'd want Donald Trump.
But see, I see that as potentially better for Trump in the very short-term view. But I think...
Yeah, well, for the next 4 years. That's all he's got.
Yeah, but I mean, so we could still get a deal with Biden. It might just not be as quick.
Well, yeah.
It might not, but so I kind of have to still side with the argument that just rather have someone who who looks like us, sounds like us, thinks like us a bit more than Trump does. He's a bit too erratic for my liking.
Yeah, no, I get what you mean. And
we might get a deal with him, but then we disagree with him about something, and then all bets are off, and it won't happen anymore.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of pros and cons, obviously, but
and we're trying to grow back arena or whatever, and he's definitely not going to do that. I mean,
well,
they're trying to create more coal, I think.
Yeah.
So we're not going to be aligned in that sense either. So I don't know. I think long term we just need a more sensible person, basically.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the reasons of pulling out of the Paris Climate Agreement, that they want to bring back manufacturing jobs and reopen the coal mines. They basically had no intention of meeting their emission targets because they looked across the sea and saw that China wasn't either. However, since then, China has released its own ideas of how it's going to get to carbon neutral by 2050, and they do seem to be doing stuff about it. The US hasn't.
They're going to be ahead, aren't they? They're going to be dramatic.
Exactly.
But ultimately going to suffer.
But I mean, even if the US pull up the past climate agreement and say, "Cool, we don't want your rules. We'll have our own rules." Okay, what are your rules? What are you going to do? Because it's a worldwide problem. You can't just pretend it doesn't exist. And given the maps you see of when the polar ice caps melt, I mean, it's the US that gets really badly hit. All the rich places on the coasts, like California, is gone. I mean, there's a reason why most of the middle states are quite sparse, and why right now Trump holds the middle belt. But the middle belt have very limited electoral votes because not a lot of people live there. Yeah. So in places like California, where there's like 20 million people,
I also get the impression they don't know what's going on outside. I mean, that might be a bit rude, but like listening to all the commentary at the moment, and when they do the interviews to the people in those sort of counties, it's like they don't understand. It's like they don't know what's going on. It's like they think that coal, like if we just take coal as an example, like they think that that's the answer. That it's wrong that we don't have coal. They haven't sort of worked out that, well, on second, it causes a problem too. So you can have manufacturing jobs, they just can't be coal. You have to have other jobs. They're just not one that you used to have, which I appreciate is difficult for people to retrain and all that sort of stuff. But it's like they're just not aware of all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the coal industry in the UK ended in the 80s with Margaret Thatcher primarily. And I think the problem is that Trump has played an economic card by saying we need to compete with China. And we are competing with China, well, the US compete with China on the basis of trying to bring back jobs to the US. And coal, for example, is still imported, still used, the same as the UK still imports coal. And they're trying to build it themselves. But what they've not really understood, perhaps, America, is that China's like 100 years behind in terms of its development. It's basically still in the industrial era. So using coal for itself makes sense because they haven't had the ability to get past that era properly yet, especially now that we're putting penalties on the use of that.
Yeah.
Because the US has, enjoyed out that era for, a long time.
Yeah.
But, we're competing on the wrong things, I think.
So, yes. Right.
The other thing I want to add, and even though Joe Biden might be the best bet, there is one thing that I think a lot of people maybe don't consider is that if Donald Trump does lose, he doesn't go out of office tomorrow or the day after he loses. He stays in office. What's that?
January, isn't it?
Yep, 20th of January. So he will be in office for another 3 months or so. And given what we know about Trump, do you think that would be anything but unpredictable and vengeful?
Well, it depends on whether or not, if the election is won, does it change the House and the Senate straight away?
No.
But I didn't.
So he still has power, basically. He could make things very difficult for his successor.
He does, but does the Senate and the House change immediately?
I think that's the same times. I don't think it does, no. Either way, you can still do an executive order.
That's true. They can do executive orders, but yes, but then presumably, if he can do an executive order, then he can undo the executive order, just like he did with Obama's Paris Agreement. He won't really get anything through the House and the Senate because they're split already, aren't they?
Yeah.
But then obviously that'd be the new problem. I mean, obviously we're now talking about just what the situation is for the US, but if it's this close, there's a reasonable probability that they're still going to be divided in the Senate, I think, and therefore he won't be, whoever's in won't be doing anything anyway.
No, that's kind of the idea, that the president who loses is just basically called the lame duck, who just sits in office, rides out the remainder of the term, and doesn't really do anything. And I suppose that would be the honorable way to go out. However, we would expect Trump to fight legally, as he's already stated he will, via the courts if needed. And he already has admitted he will not commit to an orderly transfer of power. So he will actively block as much as he can. So if Biden does win, he's probably in for months of trouble trying to even get in. So when you say, for example, we can rejoin the Paris Climate Agreement within a month, I'm not sure if that's going to happen.
No, so I didn't mean within a month from now, but from whenever they state that they'd like to go back in, it will only take them, whereas it took them 3 years to leave and it takes them 1 month. They can just say, I'd like to go back in, and then they have to go, they have to wait a month or something to join. There's an event, I think, in December, which might be held in the UK, if it's even being held because of COVID, but which if they had said like tomorrow that they wanted to come back, they wouldn't be able to go to that because they'd have to go past a few steps first before they could go to these events. But the point being is they could undo that pretty quickly if they wanted.
Good. Okay. I mean, that would definitely be a good show for Biden then. Just undoing that itself would undo a lot of damage.
If he wins, which we don't know.
If he wins, still very divided, likely to be divided for some time.
I mean, he might now be in. Like, since we've started this episode, he might now be in. We don't know. Certainly by the time we publish this, then he might be in. But we think he's going to be in court is what we expect him to happen for the next year.
Yeah, and he's padded out the Supreme Court quite well in preparation for this. So, there's a lot of pre-planning gone in here.
Yeah.
But and one thing we do know is that Kanye West has not won. He has announced he's lost the running. However, he did get 50,000 votes.
Did he?
I mean, this world is mad.
50,000 votes. Clearly, some people just don't care.
I mean, yeah. But the cool thing is, if you're a Kanye West fan, he is also running in 2024.
Great.
So get ready for that.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
I don't have to go on from there, to be honest.
I mean, that sounds like a good place. Just put a pin in it.
Yeah. Screw this. Kanye West. The hell. Right. Well, on that depressing note, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Remember to think, educate, and act. Bye-bye.